I thought I'd better show my face after best part of 3 weeks. I've been a bit ill, and my neighbour, who's a GP, tells me that I've probably picked up a rhinovirus. So I had this terrible cough and been knocked out. But I've still managed to get to a couple of gigs, 2 out of the 3 that were planned. So anyway, in showing my face, I just want to touch upon a small number of topics, really. Let me just describe. I've got a list here to help me remember. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about a counterfeit record. I'm going to talk about duplicates of albums. I'm going to briefly mention the 2 gigs and talk a little bit about those 2 gigs. And I'm going to review an album that has been on my radar since about 1985 that I never bought, never heard, but I was prompted to actually buy an album, albeit on CD, and finally review it. So I'll give my verdict on that as well. So the first thing, I'm going to go back to my video on the mini haul from our trip to Seville. So you might have seen that video that we went off to Seville for a few days, and just like any vinyl addict, I will try and steal a little bit of time in a record shop if I'm able to find one. And I did, as usual, did a bit of a travelogue video. First time in Seville, a spectacular place. Put a video together that'll be popping up on the channel in due course. So if you're interested in a little bit of a travel perspective, that's coming. But I had a little mini haul. I managed to visit a couple of record shops, and one in particular where I actually spent some money. And one of the records I bought was this one, which is the Smashing Pumpkins and Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Now, I've had this on CD for many a year now, and always kind of curious about what it would sound like on vinyl. And so I wasn't really searching it out because it's not one of my favorite albums, but I love the cover. From the stuff that the music is great as well. I think the production has always been a kind of a little bit thin sounding. Maybe that's just my ear, I don't quite know. But I thought if I find a nice copy, I'll buy it. But of course, what I didn't realise, because I'm not a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, is that this is a very, very rare record on vinyl. Now, when I've checked listings on Amazon over the past year or so, I've recognised that there is a version of this album available on vinyl, but it's like a bit of a box set. And little did I know that the original is worth a lot of money. But anyway, I put this little video up, and somebody commented under the video, and let me give a shout out to Banana Gumboot 87, who left a comment very simply: I think that Smashing Pumpkins is a bootleg. Banana Gumboot, you're right. It's certainly a bootleg. The original copy, the original version of the vinyl, has a little white rectangle down here with the numbered copy of the vinyl on it. I don't know how many were released back in the 90s, but it's a little white rectangle. This doesn't have one. Now, if you've got an original, or you're searching for an original, it costs hundreds of pounds. Loads and loads of money. I would never contemplate buying this. I bought this album. It's a triple album. I bought it for €50 because I thought it was a repress that I'd simply not heard of. As I say, I'm not a huge fan, so I don't log on to Smashing Pumpkins' website and all that sort of business. But it's I've checked the matrix numbers, and even though this is a brilliant pressing, it's a lovely little package, no question about it. It's really nice. I think it's a very close copy to the original, apart from this little rectangle that's missing here. And it sounds pretty good. Now, has it? It's obviously just been pressed from a digital file. Probably the original was as well. So I don't quite know whether it's been EQ'd for vinyl properly. But as I say, I never thought it was the best sounding album anyway. But anyway, it's a good job that I'm not such a great purist when it comes to having the OGs, because I didn't think this was an OG. It's beautiful glossy cover, spectacular in terms of its reproduction, but the missing piece in there is apparent if you know what you're looking for. So anyway, that's a counterfeit. It makes me wonder about how many records we pick up in record shops or record fairs that they're on the fringe of artists we like. We don't walk around with our Discogs kind of file at hand, or Discogs profile, and we're not checking matrix numbers all the time because we're kind of in a hurry. How many counterfeit records do we actually pick up? Anyway, I'm not concerned about that one, but some people will be. Now, I suspect a real fan wouldn't have fallen for it, but I'm happy with that. €50. What else? Oh, right, yeah. So when we went to Den Bosch, that was me, Gav Axman Spins, and Rob Walker. When we came back, we went into kind of an overflow room for my records, and I gave the guys an opportunity to go through what are my duplicates. And Gav made I sold a few records to them, gave a couple away as well, which is always nice to do. But Gav made a video on the finds, and I think what did he call it again? He called it Dave's Duplicates Raid. So I think Gav, Axman Spins, bought more records from me than he bought in Den Bosch. But anyway, he put this video together, and someone left a comment, and I feel as though I must respond. Let me just pick out that comment. This will just take 1 second. Here we go. All right. It's from 2 weeks ago. Anyway, someone says it's at PSN489, who's I think on YouTube but doesn't produce content. And he says, all right, Gavler, for Gav, total insanity having multiple copies of the same album. From the cost to the storage. More money than sense, ? One-upmanship, ? Total arrogance, ? Who knows? Frankly, who really cares? So that was the comment. So, duplicates. Why have I got duplicates? Well, I've long been buying second-hand records, like most of you who'll be watching this video, and every now and again you'll find a record that it's been played and it's not in the perfect condition, but you'll buy it because it's cheap. It's good value for money. And so I was kind of buying up a lot of albums that I kind of maybe missed first time around. And then, crucially, I started working from home. I was a management consultant, business trainer in negotiation and so on. And in working from home, I had an office set up. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to do was maybe be open to the idea of buying duplicate albums and putting it down in the office. So that every time I wanted to play a record, I wouldn't have to kind of walk up to the stairs to this listening room here. And anyway, when I'm buying these duplicates, I mean, I can understand why someone might consider it to be, a bit over the top, and that it must be really expensive. But some people have no idea how cheap vinyl was up until a few years ago. So, as a friend of mine was after a few albums, and he said he'd been getting back into his vinyl, as it were, and he was talking, I think he talked about Out of the Blue, or was it a New World Record by the Electric Light Orchestra, as one of several albums he asked if I had a spare copy of. Because he'd been down to his local record shop, and they were selling them for about £15 or £20 a piece. Now, I picked up duplicates of these albums 10 years ago, 20 years ago, £3 or £4, maybe £2 at a local charity shop. So when the albums were so cheap like that, it's not a big decision to go and buy a duplicate and for use in the office. And so that's kind of what I did. And because I worked basically from home, except when I was with clients, for the almost 20 years, I spent a lot of time at the desk listening to records. So it was never an issue for me to buy duplicates. However, we have reached the point now where I'm beginning to think I should I'm not working anymore, obviously I'm retired, so the office is no longer used as an office, and so I'm going to get rid of these duplicates. And so before we went off to Den Bosch, I started to do some sorting and made sure that all the duplicates were located in a single spot, and there's more work to do in that regard, but most of them are in that place right now and ready for me to, give away, sell, or even run a stand at a record fair, which is potentially on the card sometime this year. So I'm kind of finally getting round to getting rid of these duplicates. But I think the guy said, the commenter said something about total arrogance, and what the is that all about? Bloody hell. Anyway, that's why I've got loads of duplicates, and that'll not be the case a year from now. So what else has been going on? Well, I've managed to get to a couple of gigs. I saw, for the very first time, I saw this band. I say this brand called Tangerine Dream do a show in Birmingham Town Hall, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Phaedra, the big breakthrough album they had in the UK and internationally, I guess, because this was released on the Virgin Records label. And of course, the three members of the band who are on stage today weren't around 50 years ago. I think there's at least one of them, maybe two of them, aren't even 50 years old, so weren't even born maybe when this record was originally released. But anyway, Tangerine Dream were never really about the personalities, and I'm not sure if you know the music, but it's kind of the ambient sequencer, kind of electronica, shades of krautrock, instrumental, of course, almost exclusively instrumental, and that's when you think about their whole catalogue, which runs to about 100 LPs. I haven't got anything like that sort of number. However, so I was quite happy, and to go and not worry about who was on stage, I bought a ticket on the back row of the balcony, right at the very back, and stole 20 odd seconds of video at the very end, even though they were discouraging people from using phones, quite rightly, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Stole 20 seconds or so, which I'll show over this little monologue here. But really good. Some really exciting stuff. It was two sets. The first set was, I think they called it the Phaedra Suite. So themes within this album and other albums around this period came into the soundscapes. And the big question as an audience member is, how much of this is pre-recorded and how much of it is improvised? I understand there's a huge chunk of it that's improvised. I'm not too bothered about all of that. It was an exciting show. Anyway, the second half of the show was more of their 80s and 90s material. And if you follow Tangerine Dream, you will know that come the 80s and 90s, their music became more homogenous, if you like. It was more standardized stuff. It was the rhythms in particular were far less inventive, far more predictable, and you can absolutely understand the influence they had on 90s dance music and techno and so on. So the second set on the in the gig was much more of that dance orientated music, and it was less satisfying. And I remember in the interval, I went down to the bar and briefly chatted with a couple of guys, and one of them said, "I don't know why they have a light show. They should just turn the lights out, and we should just listen to the music," which I suspect quite a few fans of Tangerine Dream have done over the years. But anyway, that was pretty good. Thursday last week, I was up in Newcastle to see Stephen Wilson. Stephen Wilson of Porcupine Tree fame. Now, I saw Porcupine Tree in the mid-1990s in this tiny little place in Birmingham. They were brilliant, really, really great. I've followed Stephen Wilson's ever since, and I've got just about all his official releases, at least on album. There may be some EPs that I've missed and so on and so forth. But anyway, he's so prolific. It's because he's got so many side projects as well. It's really, really hard to keep up. So most of the music was kind of recognizable, but not totally. Had an absolutely fantastic band, brilliant show, superb video screen, light show. At Newcastle City Hall was like a throwback to the great, maybe progressive rock spectacles of yesteryear. And he played in the overview is his most recent album, and it's just a single album, one track either side of the vinyl. And he played all of that. They played all of that in the first half, and then he did selections from some of his other albums, including a Porcupine Tree track, maybe two. That one, the first one, was very recognizable. Maybe another one, but I'm not 100% sure. Possibly not. But he really featured these two albums here, which is the Harmony Codex and the Raven That Refused to Sing. This one in particular is an absolutely gorgeous piece of work. Yeah, brilliant show. So if you've got a chance to see Tangerine Dream, go see him, but have low expectations about engagement with the audience, and it is what it is. But if you get a chance also to see Stephen Wilson, gotta go see him. It's a legendary show he's put on. Fantastic piece of work. So, finally, I said that's just about it. Finally, there's an album by a band that I saw back in the day several times, and I thought they were one of the most exciting bands I ever saw. But as their career progressed from the late 70s through to the 80s, I kind of lost interest as time passed, even though I bought all of the albums apart from this last one. And I was watching a video by Brian, the Embryonic Robot, just a few weeks ago, where he was featuring this album that he picked up on vinyl. And to paraphrase, it was a piece of crap. And anyway, I'll let that pass me by. And I thought, well, maybe Brian's got it wrong. Maybe there is some this album has some redeeming features. And then last week, I watched a video from Todd, Lost Mixtapes, up there in Seattle, and he named this video. What was it? 5 records they warned us about, and this record popped up. And I thought, and I commented to Todd, I said, look, this band, they're not all bad. It couldn't possibly produce such a turkey at the end of their career, especially when other band members and the lead singer also continued to produce good music for many years to come. But anyway, here's the album. It is Cut the Crap by The Clash. Now, as I say, Brian thinks this is a pile of, and I think Todd pretty much thinks the same, but I thought this has surely got to be worth hearing. So I wasn't going to throw 30 quid away and buy the vinyl, but what I would do is I'll buy the CD. And I played it. Now, there's a single on here called This Is England, and so on Clash compilations, you'll find that track very often. but as an album, I mean, I'll link to Todd's video because he goes into a bit more depth than I'm prepared to go into right now. But let me just say, my assessment of this album is that it is absolutely a piece of crap. Most notably, Joe Strummer's voice is so low in the mix. You think, what the hell is the point of this album? It's just been, to me, it's just been thrown together. It is really awful. I didn't even get to the end of the album before I gave up. So anyway, Todd, Brian, you're both right. This is crap. So on that note, I'll see you next video. Bye for now.